Hello everyone, and welcome to the Sands of Time review channel. It is your host, Sammy Thunder. Sorry I haven't been here making more YouTube videos. I've been affected by the COVID situation, and my videography supplies tools are currently not with me. So I am actually filming with the mobile phone. So not the best way to capture a Grand Seiko. Also, second thing is this is my latest acquisition. I actually got this around 2.5 months ago, being the Grand Seiko SBGM221. So this was my recent acquisition. It was kind of a grail watch of mine for over a year. One of those watches I told myself that I really wanted. If I had the funds, I would definitely go for it. I'm glad I actually went for this watch here over something else. Now, it is my very first Grand Seiko. It is also very reminiscent of being a first luxury piece, kind of like spending above the $5,000 mark on a wristwatch. So this is the watch here, the Grand Seiko SBGM221. I believe this watch is thoroughly documented and reviewed, so this is kind of an owner's perspective, non-biased owner's perspective on the watch. This is a keeper. This is definitely a keeper watch, and we'll start off with a basic review of the watch. I'm not going to go through things like the specifications. I will mention certain aspects such as the thickness of the watch, things that people did draw out when they were doing their reviews. But one of the main reasons I purchased this watch was purely on the aesthetics of the dial. I thought the dial was extremely well finished to perfection. I thought the indices were much different than your typical Grand Seiko. They were much thicker, and I truly appreciated that on a watch. They glimmer in the light, signature Grand Seiko, and also with that thermally blued GMT hand. That's it's a thick GMT hand, which I currently use as a glorified 24-hour time scale. So one day I'll get to use the GMT function. So as an owner of this watch, two of the biggest kind of gripes, or not really gripes but worries for me, was A, 30 meters of water resistance, and B, the thickness of the watch. The thickness to me is not a worry at all. This watch actually looks fairly thin and wears fairly thin, and if I'd actually ask you to guess the thickness of the watch just by this video itself, do let me know what you do think of it. But it is quoted at around 13.8 to 14 mils thick. Let's just approximately say 14 mils. Or diver watch thickness. I definitely don't see that at all, especially on the wrist when I give you a wrist shot. We'll definitely see that. So the 30 meters of water resistance, I'm not really a dress watch person, so I didn't actually buy this watch thinking I was buying a dress watch. I was buying a very nice GMT watch. That's what I was thinking. I'm not a dress watch person. I'm more of a sporty person. So that's kind of what I was thinking when purchasing this watch. Even though it is a dress watch in all means, it is in the Grand Seiko taxonomy, it is part of the elegance line. So don't think you'll find many watches above 30 meters of water resistance in the elegance line, which is fine, because the everyday person doesn't really, for myself, I'm not really jumping in the water or doing any aquatic sports or ventures. So a lot of times I am not really worried about the water resistance, and even when I do, let's say, wash my hands or something, it has never really been a worry there. So there's no anxiety there. And look, in the worst case scenario, if I'm wearing this watch and it's raining, I cover the watch. If the rain is actually gonna seep through the shirt, or I'll just simply put it in my pocket, and it should do the trick. But yeah, those were the two main worries of the watch. I you know, this being an automatic watch over a spring drive was also something that I considered. I really wanted a spring drive, and I definitely will add a spring drive to the collection. But when I saw this watch, it was just, you know, kind of just love at first sight kind of thing. You know, this watch is marvelous. It is marvelous. The finishing on the dial, just the design, the aspects. It's so clean. The minute track, the GMT numbers. One thing to note is that the GMT hand is thermally blued. These numbers are also dark navy blue, and also that GMT text is as well. The date window itself, if you actually look at the background for the date window, that's actually a silvery pattern. Not silvery pattern, but a finish. I've also seen this on the Marine Master 300, so they probably use the same part there. But the watch itself is exquisite. You have an applied GS logo, printed Grand Seiko text. It's clean, you know. I've heard someone say this is the Japanese JLC. I truly believe this is one of Grand Seiko's most signature watches. And even after the dial, you know, you might look at this case and might think, okay, it's fairly simple. The entire case is zaratsu polished. You know, and sometimes you might think, oh, full polished case, it's not a thing. But, you know, it might not be to someone's taste, or, you know, it might be very plain, but Grand Seiko have done this to perfection. Now, a lot of reviewers have already stated, you know, they've added that transitioning beveled edge there. Look, it's a nice touch, I like it, but the star here is just a level of detail. So you start off with the zaratsu polishing, so distortionless polishing. I'm not going to go through how it's done because it's covered to death, but what I want to just state here is that you have that first level of zaratsu polishing, and then you have that kind of top bezel part there that's zaratsu polished. You have a very tiny bevel there, like a ring bevel, that's zaratsu polished, and then the top layer is zaratsu polished there, where you can see the reflection of my thumb. There's another layer, very thin, right next to the crystal, that's also zaratsu polishing. So you can see there's four levels or four facets to the case itself. So it is a complex case. There's no cost-cutting methods that I've seen here in an elegance line compared to something from the heritage with the 44GS, for example, or other Grand Seiko cases. Obviously, with Grand Seiko, signed crown, and the winding of the watch is very smooth, and it also has a nice feedback. It has a manual wind feedback to it, which is, you know, I feel like there's a soul inside of a watch compared to using something like the EDA 2824 on my Doxa 300T, where it's just smooth, not much feedback. Obviously you do feel resistance, but I think with a Grand Seiko there's something special going on there. Obviously you got the 9S66 movement. 9S66. Is it 9S66? If my thing can focus. Yes, 9S66A. This is, you know, adjusted to the 6 positions instead of the 5. Look, I don't really care about that stuff. I like the finishing of the movement. I like looking at the movement every now and then. You know, it's not your typical Swiss finishing, but I like the Tokyo stripings. I also like how the case back is, you know, it's screwed in with 6 screws, symmetrical, clean. No text. There is text, but you know, you can barely see that, and I like it. It's clean watch. It's clean. You know, it's just showing off the watch itself. We don't need to see extra text, etc. The strap itself is supple out of the box, and I liked it. I like it a lot, and I love this buckle, actually. Initially, you know, I wasn't a fan of deployants, but I think this one's done well. So essentially, it's kind of like a normal pin buckle, but then, you know, it's a deployant as well. So you get double the security there. and I like the feedback you get when you secure the clasp. Very nice, solid execution there, beautiful watch. So have I had any issues with this watch? No, it's running pretty much accurate time, around 2 seconds a day of accuracy. Sometimes if I leave it stable in a watch box, I think it gains a little bit more time, but that has not bothered me. I'm not a huge fanatic over chronometer specifications, certifications, having super accurate watches. That stuff doesn't matter to me. The Gmt alignment is perfect, so when you know the hour hand Gmt alignment, there's no off. The minute hand would not be off, or the hour hand would not be off. Sorry. Also, yeah, another nice touch is including these drilled lug holes. So I've actually used it quite a bit easily to swap out some straps. But guess what? I've put it back on this strap because it's marvelous. And I own ostrich straps, and you know I still think this is probably the best strap I own. And I'm not going to put an amazing watch with a mediocre strap. Well, not really a mediocre strap, but I think this watch deserves much better in terms of straps. In bright sunlight, this watch does appear to be a off-white color, but in low light situations it appears to be ivory, so it plays with the light very well. In situations where there is sunlight, not sunlight, but sun setting, I do notice the color of this dial becomes a rich ivory color. It's playing with the light extremely well. So even though this is one of the more simpler Grand Seikos, not with those textured dials, I think this dial here plays very well with the light compared to those. I would actually call this the Grand Seiko Autumn. Just for some Grand Seiko terminology there. I truly believe this is a special Grand Seiko. So it's a GMT function with the mechanical movement. So it does the job. In terms of time telling, does it well. But what I like most is the way it's telling the time. Those sharp edges, samurai-like handset, everything about this watch, I truly appreciate. So there's really not much I can say. I do think Tim Mosso's review of this watch is excellent. So you can make this watch to be anything. It can be a dressy watch, it can also be a sporty watch. It's whatever you want it to be, as Tim Mosso says. So thanks everyone just for watching this video, and I'm going to be putting out some more videos on some of my other watches that I've owned for more than a year, so kind of like an annual watch review. So thanks for watching my videos. And just before parting wrist shot, just so you can see the watch on the wrist. So that's the watch I put on my right hand just for this instance only. So that's kind of the watch. That's the buckle. It's kind of tight on my right hand. My right hand, wrists are a bit bigger than my left wrists, but it wears well. And you can probably tell. Do you think this is a thick watch? I personally don't see it. I think it's a fairly thin piece. So see you guys from the reflections of the Zaratsu polishing. Thanks for watching.